Welcome to the Financial Fun Podcast with your host, Tammy Johnston. This is where Tammy talks with business owner parents and grandparents about the interesting and important subject of money. We promise this to be an interesting and open discussion, as that's how we learn best. And now, here's your host, author of the Financial Foundations. Financial Foundations is a series of books to teach kids about money, goal setting, and living a balanced life. Find out more at financialfun.ca. Here's Tammy Johnston.
First things first, I would like to thank all of my listeners that have subscribed and reviewed my podcast and invite you to subscribe and review if you haven't yet. I appreciate you helping us to get the word out and making financial literacy a safe and welcoming subject for kids and adults. Second, please check out my podcast website, financialfun.ca, where you will be able to access past shows, find out more about me and our guests, as well as purchase the beautifully illustrated Financial Foundations books that teach kids about money in a fun, healthy, and holistic way. Hello once again, and thank you for joining us for the Financial Fun Podcast. Today our guest is the lovely and talented Lani Donaldson. Thank you for joining us, Lani.
Thank you.
So, Lani, what is your passion? What are you doing with your business in your life right now?
My passion is making a positive, significant difference to children and their education. So we work with kids that are having a little bit of difficulty accessing knowledge. So we enhance really human potential by increasing one's capacity to learn.
See, I love that. Learning is so important, and it seems to be extremely lacking in today's world, it seems.
It does.
How do you go about doing that? What does your business do?
Most of our programs are one-on-one. Our flagship is a reading program that bounces students, on average, 3.4 grades every 20 hours of instruction. So it's lightning fast, and we speed up learning and increase self-esteem and teach people that they can learn. It's just that they were taught in a manner their brain didn't want to pick up the information.
That's huge. 20 hours, you can do almost 3.5 grades?
Yep, you bet.
Oh my. Okay, the world needs to learn more about you. The world needs to learn a lot more about you because, unfortunately, with so many different pressures and all the different things going on, the education system is not working for the vast majority, I think, anymore. If it ever really did in the first place.
Well, it did in the 19th century when it was developed.
Yeah, and things have changed just a tad since then.
Just a tad.
And what is your family situation, Lani?
I am married to a wonderful man for 32 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. He is a lawyer and an author. He has a series of books out. And I have 3 adult daughters, so I figure I'm a shoo-in for Mother of the Year at a bridal shop.
Yes, I would definitely think so.
There you go.
So, obviously, having your own business and raising 3 kids and all this wonderful fun stuff, money's been a topic in your world. Oh,
yes. Money is always a topic in our world. Now we have two of our daughters are finishing master's degrees, and one fortunately followed me into business and runs the front end of my company, so that makes life a little easier on me. But yes, money is it's always a topic of discussion. It's always a topic of strategy, actually.
I love the fact that you say that it's always a topic of discussion. Has it always been, like, even when the girls were little?
Yeah, it's, when I grew up, my mom was a bookkeeper and a credit manager, and my dad was a marine engineer and a machinist. And, we learned some valuable lessons as kids, and I passed those on to my children. We worked in the household. We never got paid for doing dishes because my mother never got paid for doing dishes. But if we did extra stuff, then we got an allowance, and my parents always worked us on a 60-40 principle. You save 60 and you can have expendable cash of 40%.
Oh.
So, when you mow the neighbor's lawn on a half acre and you get paid $2, it doesn't go very far in today's money.
No, not in today's, but back then it probably was worth a little.
Yeah, it was like $20. So.
With it being a topic of conversation, what were some of the questions and things that your daughters would ask you?
Well, it was just questions around why do you save, like why this 60-40. And quite frankly, it's just because it sounded good. There are times that it flips from saving 60 to saving 40 and spending 60 when you have a family. But, it's just so that you create your golden goose and then you have money to leverage and make cash on. And, the rule in our house was never kill the golden goose. So, if they wanted something, they had to save and put that money away. And then, eventually it got into cash where, you can leverage it and invest and those kinds of things. We used to, play a lot of, games around money and, pretending to invest and that kind of thing.
So what were some of the games you play with your daughters?
Well, there's always the Monopoly, which is, safe. But, we would do, we'd open up the newspaper and we would, everybody got to pick a stock and we would pretend to put, $1,000 into that stock and see where it went over, say, a month. And whoever gained the most won.
And how old were your daughters when you were doing this?
They were in elementary school.
So elementary school, and when you guys were playing these games and stuff, like what were your daughters asking? Like, were they how did they go about playing the game, being so young and getting into something that most people think is very complicated, like the stock market?
Well, we would obviously we would bring it down to their level, but it's just I just think it's a good way to teach kids to respect money and not to, as adults they're all very, well versed in how money works and keeping track of the economy and what, a 0.5 interest rate actually means. So, and it just increases your debt load if you have too much debt load.
Well, and the debt servicing, which is a very big thing. I love the fact that you guys talk about it, because one of the main reasons why I do the podcast is because money is such a taboo subject that most families never talk about it, and if it's brought up, it's like hush hush, we don't talk about it. It's not polite. And then we're sending our kids off into this big bad financial world, totally and completely unequipped.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And it's I had a staff member not that long ago that was saying, I just hate money. And I went, why is that? Well, I don't know how we have to, use money to purchase stuff. And I said, well, you can go back to Pebbles. We used to use that.
Or bartering everything. But going, that would completely cut down on our quality of life, because you can't barter that much.
Exactly.
And where are you going to keep all your chickens?
For sure.
But yeah, bringing that up, like there's so many people that biggest part of my job is counseling, especially marriage counseling, and there's so much shame and fear and all of that around money, and then they wonder why they have problems with it. And going, well, if you don't like something and you tell it all the time that you don't like it, how is it going to be in your world?
Exactly.
And with your daughters being grown and couples still in college and things like that, do you still carry on the conversations?
Well, my oldest daughter is married and has a mortgage and whatnot, and when they were going to buy their house and whatnot, we had conversations around mortgages and qualifying for mortgages and all those kinds of things. The middle one is going to be married this summer, and they're putting away cash for a down payment on houses and whatnot. And so those conversations, are ongoing. My youngest is over in Europe doing her master's, so I have no idea what she's doing.
So what would you suggest parents do nowadays in order to bring up the lovely difficult conversation and start taking away the taboo from it? What would you suggest? Because you've obviously been very successful in your own household.
Well, stop thinking it of as taboo, and it should, discussing finance and money and how money works and whatnot, it should be like discussing the weather. It's a reality, and it's part of our society and our economy. So, shifting mindset and looking at money as a tool as opposed to, a taboo kind of thing is a really big first step.
And how old were you when you started like consciously working on teaching your daughters and stuff like that? How old were your kids?
How old are my kids? Well, my kids are all 2 years apart. So probably, the oldest, we would start with, she would say, well, my friends all get allowance. Why don't I get an allowance? And I go, well, because mom doesn't get an allowance for doing stuff in the house that's part of the family unit. But once you're doing things that are outside of the family unit, extra stuff, then you get paid for that. Mm. And in the meantime, you get X number of dollars so that you learn how to work money. And then we would have that conversation, and we would use, well, it was before we had loonies and toonies, so we would use quarters.
Yes.
And dimes, and we say, okay, so if you have 10 dimes, you put 6 away in your piggy bank, and you can use those 4 for whatever you want. But if you want something that's more than 40 cents, then you have to wait till next week when you get another 4 to have as expendable cash. So they started off, relatively early, but, we would have family conversations around it when the youngest got to about 6 or 7.
Mm. And did you, having 3 daughters, did you discover that they had very different personalities? Like, did one daughter deal with money in one way and the others different, or were they all relatively similar because of how you guys were teaching them and raising them?
Oh, well, honey, all 3 are different, or life would be boring. There were days I prayed for boredom, let me tell you.
You and every other parent on the planet.
That's true. I think they all deal with money relatively the same. One might be a little more frugal than the other ones, which is a positive in terms of where she is, because she's overseas. But I think pretty much they're all on the same page. They understand and respect money, but they've learned how to leverage it and make a dollar go a long way.
And do you find that your daughters will talk to one another about it and discuss and bounce ideas off one another, or they're pretty self-sufficient and keep it to themselves?
Well, I think they're probably pretty self-sufficient. I wouldn't know because they don't live at home anymore. So
to finish up here, if you could suggest, because obviously you've already done a very good job with your daughters, but if you could suggest that there's 3 things that parents need to teach their kids about money before they go out into the big bold world, what 3 things do you think parents should be teaching their kids about money?
3 things. Well, I think we have to really teach our kids that money is not a bad thing. And credit is not a bad thing if you respect it.
I like that, the respect part. There's so many. The only financial lesson I ever got from my parents is don't go into debt. And then going, well, that doesn't kind of work. Like if you want to buy a house or anything like that, that's debt.
Exactly.
And it's not a bad thing, but yeah, it's the respect of it. I like that.
Mhm. That's a huge thing. And staying away from, consciously staying away from comments that make money seem the root of all evil. It's the old adage that money is not the root of all evil. The love of money is the root of all evil if you fall into that category. But if you can think of money as a tool, and a leverage point. I think that goes a long way to shifting the way you think about it.
Well, yeah, it is a fact of life in our world, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. So you might as well get comfortable with it and start to learn how it works and use it in a way that benefits your life and everyone around you. Money, it allows us to do so many great things. It's the shortage of money or the poverty mentality that I think causes more grief than anything.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, the poverty mentality or the lack mentality.
Well, yeah, and then you get people that are being greedy. If you're getting something, it means I'm not getting something, and that's not how it works.
No, it's not. It's not. You know, and you know, because wow, you can blow it if you have the wrong mindset.
Oh, everything comes down to the mindset. And what would be the third thing?
Don't blow it. Yeah, don't screw up, kid. Good luck. You know, I think, you know, encouraging kids to, you know, that you're open for discussing difficulties or ideas so that, you know, they're not out of the nest and afraid to come back and have those discussions again. I think, you know, as parents, we have a certain amount of wisdom, I would hope. And, kids just need to know that they have someone that they can go to. And I think that's, those doors always have to be kept open no matter how old your kids are.
Well, yeah. And I think that ties into so many subjects. Like right now, like with dealing with my teenage daughter and stuff like that. And she's entering the sexual realm because she's 14 and around 14-year-old boys and stuff all the time. And you have to make it safe so that she can talk to you about anything. And the same thing, like you said, goes for money. Like they have to know that you're safe and that they can talk to you. Otherwise, they're going to get themselves into trouble because they're human and they're young and they don't have the experience that we do. And in an attempt to dig out of it, they typically make it 1,000 times worse.
Exactly. And it's important that they know that conversation is always open. And, you know, in terms of your daughter, when our youngest was 5, so they were 5, 7, and 9, we put them all in karate. Mm-hmm. So by the time they were 16, they were all black belts. So dating was never an issue. And they always had money to cab a cab if they needed home.
Yes, I've told my daughter, because we've been wanting to get her into stuff like that, but she keeps telling me, Mom, I'm not a joiner. But I'm going, okay, if you want to be allowed to move out of the house when you're finished high school, you will have a certain level of proficiency in the martial arts, so you're not leaving.
Exactly.
So next year, she's going, and it's not so much that I worry about her, but, and it doesn't have to be, it's not like you're scared about all of the boys and stuff out there. You only need one.
Exactly.
You only need one, so... She looked at me and we had a little explanation, but I'm going, yes, you will be starting martial arts for high school and you will do 3 years and you will make your mother happy or you're not moving out.
There you go.
She might think I'm slightly paranoid, but I'm okay with that title. I am perfectly fine with that title.
For sure.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to be with us. It was great having you on the show.
Well, thank you.
All right. Have a good day.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
Before we leave each other, I would ask all of you listening to please subscribe to and rate my podcast. A review would be most appreciated and feedback is always welcome. Whether it be a comment, future topic suggestions, and or questions you or your kids would like to have answered in the Ask Tammy column on the financialfund.ca website. Please feel free to check me out on Facebook at Financial Foundation's Children's Books, on Twitter at Financial Fun, and Instagram at financial.fun.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Financial Fun Podcast. Join Tammy Johnston again next week. For more information, please visit financialfun.ca.